Very supportive family, both your mother as well as his grandparents.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not here to dispute anything. I'm just here to be a man and take responsibility and express my feelings about this whole situation. I feel very remorseful, you know. This is a terrible situation. It's been a traumatic experience.
He was 18 years old, living with his mother, had never been arrested a single day in his life, had traveled to Ireland, Scotland, France, and South Africa, and attended a college preparatory school. And then he picked up a rifle and helped murder a rapper in a hotel parking lot. And then, 2 years later, when the jury read the verdict, he collapsed. Not quietly. He broke down in front of the whole courtroom, head on the defense table, sobbing, while the footage racked up over 3.4 million views online. This is the story of Sean Gathright, the youngest of the 4 convicted killers of Julio Foolio, the only one who cried, the only one who wasn't even a documented gang member. And yet somehow, he ended up being one of the gunmen. So today we're asking the real question. Was Sean Gathright a cold-blooded killer who just got caught? Or was he exactly what his attorney said, a puzzle piece that doesn't fit? Let's get into it. Chapter 1. Before we talk about Gathright, we need to understand what he walked into. Julio Foolio, real name Charles Jones, was a rising rapper out of Jacksonville, Florida. He had tens of thousands of fans, an active online following, and real momentum in the drill rap scene. But he also had another life running parallel to the music. Jones was a documented member of the Jacksonville-based gang known as 6 Block. That gang had been locked in a violent, years-long war with 2 rival gangs, one called ATK, short for Ace's Top Killers, and another called 1200 Out East. This wasn't just street beef, it was social media beef, drill rap beef, the kind where both sides make songs mocking each other's dead. At one point in 2018, Jones allegedly released a song taunting a man who had been shot to death. That kind of thing has consequences in that world. For years, the gangs traded trash talk, disrespectful drill rap songs, and murders. People on every side had been killed. The violence was escalating. And on June 23, 2024, Julio Foolio decided to celebrate his 26th birthday in Tampa. That decision would cost him his life. Chapter 2. The Night It Happned. The plan was coordinated. It wasn't random. It wasn't a crime of passion. This was a calculated hunt. Prosecutors laid out their theory that Foolio was the target of a planned and coordinated ambush while he was celebrating his birthday in Tampa. Multiple defendants tracked and followed Jones, firing dozens of rounds into his car while he was trapped inside. Think about that. The man was trapped in a car on his birthday. He had no way out. Trial testimony established that the defendants tracked Foolio through the city in the early morning hours as he visited 2 clubs with his entourage before journeying to a hotel near the University of South Florida. They followed him across the city, they waited, and then they moved. Surveillance video at the Home 2 Suites in Tampa shows the gunmen getting out of vehicles and beginning to shoot at cars associated with the victim. 3 gunmen emerged and ambushed him outside the hotel, firing into his car. Jones was killed. 3 other people were wounded. Hotel guests woke up to gunfire ripping through the walls of their rooms.
There goes Gathright, and there's Davion Murphy. And you can kind of see the blocky image of the brass catcher on the side of that rifle. Another view from the Tesla of Davion Murphy running back to the...
And Tampa detectives said the gunmen were Gathright, Rashad Murphy, and Davion Murphy. Sean Gathright, 18 years old, no criminal record, no gang affiliation. Holding a rifle. Chapter 3. Here's where this story gets complicated. Because Sean Gathright does not fit the profile of anyone you'd expect to be in that parking lot.
So y'all know them folks that killed Julio Foolio? Yeah, Sean Gathright was one of them. So he just got sentenced to life. Let's talk about him. I'll be honest, I grew up with Sean Gathright in Oxford, Mississippi. Me and Sean went to Oxford High School. Let me tell you, bruh, Sean wasn't no killer, bruh. I'ma keep that shit 100. Sean was not no killer. We used to sit on this man grandma's house and smoke weed together. Sean wasn't no killer. That's why, like, people who be going around with guns guns and that be talking about switches and do all this kill. They don't scare me. Nigga, Sean was a everyday regular kid. We would skip school, like hang out, have fun. And he one of the ones that killed Foolio. And I promise you he was smart. The boy was so smart in school. I know justice has to be.
The jury heard from his mother.
How are you related to Sean Gathright?
Sean is my son.
So we've heard a lot about Sean as a child. What do you want the jury to know about your son?
I'd like the jury to know that my son is a hardworking person, a hardworking young man. He's intelligent, he's driven, he has a wonderful work ethic. I want the jury to know that this is not, I believe what has been presented is not my son.
His sister.
I've never been away from Sean. We grew up together. That's my best friend. And he's sweet, he's caring. He's always there for me when I needed him. That just caring and supportive and helpful. He loves his nephew.
Did you guys all live in the same house when you had the baby?
Yes.
Okay, so he was able to be involved.
Yeah.
Is this that same baby?
Yes. He would just take him and just keep him in his room. I have a video of him doing the buzz cut sound on his phone, and
His grandmother.
Thank you. And Miss Gathright, what is your relationship to Sean Gathright?
He's my grandson.
So is his father your son?
Yes, he is.
And can you tell me a little bit about your relationship with Sean? Obviously, you're his grandmother, but are you close with Sean? Have you been his whole life?
I've been very close to Sean ever since he was born.
Have you been involved in his life since he was young?
Yes, his parents were both in the military and they were deployed, and there were times when both of the kids stayed with me for extended periods of time.
An uncle, a school counselor, and a friend.
Tudor, how do you know Sean Gathright?
We're longtime friends.
What do you mean by long time?
We met when we was younger, like middle school, and then as we've grown older, we've become closer and closer.
Did you meet in school?
No, we met outside of school. Technically, we had a bus stop near our neighborhood that we'd all used to go to, and that's like where every kid in the area kind of was at that time. And then as a couple years gone by, like my childhood friends were really close with him.
Who described an exceptionally bright young man who liked to make people laugh. Gathright had attended a college preparatory school and taken trips to places like Ireland, Scotland, France, and South Africa. He'd grown up with positive role models, completed some college classes, and had never before been in trouble. This wasn't some kid who grew up on the block, surrounded by gang culture from birth. This was somebody who genuinely had options. During the penalty phase, Gathright spoke of a privileged upbringing.
Mr. Gathright, you have led, you would agree with me, an extremely privileged life, haven't you?
Yes, sir.
You would agree with that, correct?
I would.
You've had a loving mother, correct?
Yes, sir.
A loving sister, correct?
Yes, sir.
You've had 2 wonderful grandmothers, correct?
Yes, sir.
You would agree with me, right?
I couldn't deny that.
One of which, probably, I'm assuming, sacrificed and paid for you to go to that private school.
His naivety upon encountering street culture. His own stepfather, who had been married to his mother for 11 years, described him as smart, inquisitive, and vibrant, said he loved football, basketball, and traveling, said they hadn't spoken in the last few years, which probably tells you something about the direction Gathrights' life took somewhere along the way. His defense established that Gathright was not a member of any of the gangs involved in the conflict. The detective who had spent years tracking ATK and 1200, he didn't know who Sean Gathright was until Tampa police brought him up. He wasn't on the radar, he wasn't a documented gang member, he had no tattoos, no prior arrests. His own attorney called him, and I quote, a puzzle piece that doesn't fit. So how does a college prep kid, with a passport full of stamps, end up as a triggerman in a gang assassination? That's the question nobody has fully answered. Chapter 4, The Arrest and the Ceiling Vent. Here's where it gets almost absurd. When Tampa police arrested Gathright, they found him in a car. He complied with officers and exited the car. Police searched the car and found a Glock 9mm and a bag with loose ammunition, magazines, and gun parts in the back seat. He got taken in, and once he was inside that interrogation room, the cameras kept rolling. Prosecutors dropped surveillance footage of Gathright standing on the interrogation room bed and trying to crawl out through a ceiling vent after his arrest. A ceiling vent. The footage shows Gathright inside a Jacksonville police interview room, with a blanket on the table, packing before climbing onto the table and reaching toward the ceiling tiles in an apparent effort to escape. Now I want you to sit with that for a second. This is the same man who would later stand in front of a jury and say he wanted to be a man. The same man who would cry at the verdict and tell Foolio's family he was forever sorry.
To the victim's family, I want to send my deepest condolences and I understand that it's hard losing a child, a best friend, a brother. I'm not here to dispute anything. I'm just here to be a man and take responsibility and express my feelings about this whole situation. I feel very remorseful.
Before all of that, he was up on a table, tiles in his hands, trying to Mission Impossible his way out of a police interrogation room. It didn't work, obviously. But it told you everything about where his head was in that moment. He knew what he'd done, he knew what evidence they had, and he panicked. Chapter 5: The Trial. The trial lasted weeks. It was one of the most watched hip-hop-related legal cases in recent memory. The prosecution built their case with surveillance footage, cell tower data, phone records, DNA evidence, and witness testimony. DNA on tape from the rifle matched Sean Gathright. Cell tower data placed his phone at the scene. The evidence was overwhelming. Meanwhile, his co-defendants weren't exactly helping the vibe. One of them allegedly suggested their guilt, laughed during the trial, and had an outburst in court that led to officers escorting him out in handcuffs. That's the energy some of these guys brought to a first-degree murder trial where prosecutors were seeking the death penalty. Gathrights' approach was different, quieter, more calculated, or maybe genuinely more afraid. When the jury foreman said guilty, he broke down, not quietly. The courtroom footage, now viewed more than 3.4 million times, shows a young man collapsing under the weight of what the rest of his life just became. A corrections officer stepped toward him. Gathright kept crying. The internet went crazy. Some people felt sympathy, a lot of people didn't. Chapter 6: The Penalty Phase.
Defendant Sean Gathright, verdict form, penalty phase. We, the jury, unanimously find the state proved beyond a reasonable doubt that Sean Gathright committed the homicide in a cold, calculated, and premeditated manner without any pretense of moral or legal justification. Yes, we, the jury, unanimously find the state proved beyond a reasonable doubt that Sean Gathright created a great risk of death to many persons. Yes. We, the jury, unanimously find the state proved beyond a reasonable doubt that Sean Gathright was contemporaneously convicted of a felony involving the use of violence to another person. Yes. We, the jury, have unanimously found the state proved one or more aggravating factors. Each of us has considered whether one or more of the mitigating circumstances exist. Each of us has weighed whether the proven aggravating factors are sufficient and whether the proven aggravating factors outweigh any proven mitigating circumstances. We have further considered whether Sean Gathright should be sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole or death.
After the guilty verdict, the trial moved into the death penalty phase. This is the part where the jury decides, life in prison or death. Gathrights' defense called family member after family member to the stand. His sister testified about how much he had helped her with her baby. Gathright cried as his sister began to cry, while detailing how much he helped her with her baby. And then he took the stand himself. Moments before taking the witness stand, he broke down, placing his head on a defense table. Looking toward the family of Charles Jones, a weeping Gathright stated, "I'm just here to be a man and take responsibility for the actions that led to the fatal shooting outside a Tampa hotel." He continued his emotional testimony by saying, "I will forever be sorry for the pain caused to the victims' loved ones and those wounded in the shooting." He said it had been a traumatic experience. He said he felt very remorseful. And then the prosecutor got his turn. The prosecution remained unmoved by the display, with Assistant State Attorney Scott Harmon asking Gathright how sorry he felt while fleeing the scene with a warm assault rifle in his hands. That line hit different because that's the thing about these tears. You were holding an assault rifle, it was still warm. You ran, you tried to climb through a ceiling vent, you sat through weeks of trial, and the tears came after the guilty verdict. The prosecutor also asked whether the people he shot weren't also traumatized. Gathright, in response, kept saying he didn't remember how he felt. He didn't remember how he felt while shooting into a car full of people on somebody's birthday. Chapter 7: The Real Question. Here's what makes this case genuinely complicated, and I'm going to be straight with you about it. Sean Gathright is not the same as Rashad Murphy, who was 32 years old, a documented gang member who laughed during the trial and had to be dragged out in handcuffs. Gathright was 18, he had no prior record, he was not in the gang. His attorney told the jury he had found himself caught up in the whirlwind. Despite Gathwright's lack of gang affiliation, his presence and role in the shooting remain a central question in understanding how someone with no prior criminal record became part of a deadly feud. That's the part that nobody has clean answers to. How do you go from college prep school and international travel to standing in a parking lot at 4:30 in the morning with a rifle? Some people will say he was manipulated, peer pressure, young and dumb, and trying to prove himself to people who didn't care about him. Some people will say none of that matters. Foolio is still dead. 3 other people were shot. Hotel guests nearly died in their beds. And the tears don't change what happened. They don't bring Charles Jones back. His own attorneys were using those tears to persuade the jury to spare his life. That's the function those tears were serving in that courtroom. Whether they were real or not, and they may have been completely real, their purpose in that room was strategic. The prosecutor saw it the same way. Warm assault rifle, now you're crying. Chapter 8: Where this ends. As of now, Sean Gathright faces a potential death sentence.
Davion Murphy's fate has been sealed. He will die in Florida State Prison. That is for sure. That's a fact. He's going to die one way or another. The only question that remains that you have to answer in this phase, in the second phase, is whether Davion Murphy...
The same jury that convicted the group is now tasked with recommending to the judge whether they live or die. Under Florida law, it doesn't need to be unanimous. 8 out of 12 jurors is enough to recommend death. He is 20 years old. He will either spend the rest of his life in prison or be executed by the state of Florida for a murder he committed at 18. And the internet has already made up its mind about him. Over 3 million people watched him cry. The comments were not kind. But I'll leave you with this. Gathright pledged to use his prison time to help others avoid his path. He spoke of Christian ministry and mentoring. Whether you believe him or not is up to you. What isn't up for debate is this. Julio Foolio celebrated his 26th birthday in Tampa. He never made it to 27. And the people responsible for that, documented gang members, and one kid who was not a documented member of any gang, are all now facing the consequences. The tears were real, the rifle was also real. And the jury is still deciding which one matters more. That's the story of Sean Gathright. If you made it this far, you already know what to do, like, subscribe and drop a comment. Do you think Gathright deserves the death penalty, or is he a case of the wrong place, wrong crowd, wrong decision? Let me know below.